Hi guys, welcome to a new tutorial, and today for the first time I'm going to make a substance painter tutorial and show you how to use the baked lightning filter specifically for Second Life. So the first thing what we're going to do is open a new file, which is an FBX low poly model. This for we open, select new, then you select your FBX file. And I use a 2048 resolution, and for Second Life it's important to open in OpenGL for the normal map format. And then we open it. It's going to turn it around. So usually this UV would be a little bit fuller because there is a cuff coming with it, but for the sake of the tutorial I uploaded it only for the color now, so the UV is a little bit empty, but for this it doesn't matter. You can see we have two materials. We have leather, and we're going to have the metals, and we're going to texture both. So the first thing we need to do before we start putting any texture or material onto it, we're going to bake the maps. And Substance will calculate every kind of material and texture we're going to use later into the normal map and into the height information. So we're going to the texture settings tab, and we scroll down to bake mesh maps, click that, and here you change your size to 248. This can be changed later on anyway. This is just my personal preference to work with. And in this case, we're going to use the low poly mesh as high poly mesh. If you have a high poly with more details in it already, you can also plug that in here, and then it will bake from your high poly mesh. In this case, we're going just to stick with one mesh and use the low poly version. Then we change the anti-aliasing to 4x4, and we will match by mesh name. Everything else you can leave as is for the beginning, and then just click bake, select textures. Now, depending on your computer, it will take a little bit until all textures are done, and I'm just gonna wait, let it bake, and I'll be back in a second. So now everything is baked, and in the texture settings you can see all the maps we've got now. Those will adjust with the texture we're going to put on. Now we're going to go to the layers, and I'm going to start to apply a smart material. I'm going to search by leather, and it's a default material. You will have this one too. Leather stylized. The first layer that is there by default I'm going to delete. We don't need that. And we have the stylized leather, and you see it already looks very nice. But when I move the color here, you see the light is moving around. This is a PBR render. This is something we do not have in Second Life. So here the light changes, but you see the UV does not. So if we would just export these kind of materials, we would not really know what we're going to see in the world. So to get a better result for us specifically, we will change to base color. I know this doesn't look very nice, but we will make it look nice. And for this, just so you see, the smart material has already many layers included with noise and darker touch and curvature that will have special effects on the material. But to be able to see this, we need light and we need reflection from something, from a source. Therefore, we apply a baked lightning filter. We go to filter and drag and drop it on top of the leather. We still don't see much, but in the baked lightning settings down here, we have the environment map that is right now empty. And here we're going to plug in an environment to basically tell Substance where to get the reflection from. And You have many by default here. Just try out a few. Like this is a standard I use a lot just to show you. And you already see now the light is not moving because it's baked in, but now we already get some nice texture. And this is actually, if we would export this, this is what we would get. But you see the back is very dark. It's light in the front. This would not change. It would be exactly like this in Second Life. So we need to even this out. For this particular leather, I will use the soft contrast, and it's just a gray shading. You see, you can't see very much right now, but it will be enough for what we need here. I'm gonna go back to the leather and to the base color. This is now just literally a color fill layer, but I would like to have more actual leather structure in this. So what I'm going to do is the material mode here says no resource selected, and we will give it plain material leather, and we're going to use a calf skin, and in the calf skin just drag and drop into the material mode. Now you see we already have a very different look. It's too grainy, so what we will do is come in and just scale it to, let's see, maybe one more. Let's go to 3. So we have rather a fine leather, but still some structure. And I'm going to change the color of this to 0.5, 0.5, 0.5. This is like my standard gray that I like to use and to later apply colors onto. For the curvature, I'm going to change to, let's see, we can go a little bit lighter here. So we have like lighter edges. And this we can leave as is. Okay, so this is for the base, is already not bad. I want a little bit shine to it now, but you see now the back and the front is pretty soft in the lightning. We see details, we see leather details. We don't see any shine yet, but it's like a very matte, dull leather. You might like just that effect. You can leave it this way, or you can add something else. I will use, I'm just going to sort by gloss. Whatever is glossy, like we have a plastic gloss, we have steel gloss, and the plastic actually gives a nice shine effect that we will drag and drop here. And you have layers like in Photoshop that you can use to multiply, to just use divide, darken, lighten, almost the same layer functionality as you have in Photoshop. I'm going to change the color first because I don't want any blue. I'm going to go by my standard gray. Change that because I literally want only the shine effect from it. And I'm going to multiply because I want all my others effect in there. Something turned blue, my curvature turned blue. We don't want that. The curvature is going to be gray. Okay. And now we can play with the roughness slider. And let's see. This is a little bit too much. You can adjust the roughness of it. And probably multiply is not so good for this one. Maybe this is even better. A bit more metallic. Okay, let me get a little bit more clean surface this way. Okay, now for the lights, we're going to go back to the Bake Lightning filter, and here we have the horizontal and the vertical rotation of the sun, and you see I can also play around with this a little bit, and depending where you want it. Although it was pretty nice and soft in the beginning. I think for now we can leave it like this. It can be a little bit darker in the back, a little bit lighter in the front. I think this is quite nice. So we already have a nice leather here. Okay, we are going to switch to the metals for now. And again, in the materials, I'm going to select a gold. You can do a silver or whatever you prefer, or brass or whatever. Again, now we just see a base color only because we don't have any lights or anything applied. Especially for something like metal, you would need a good reflection for the metal to actually look like metal. So again, we basically do the same thing that we did with the Bake Lightning filter before for the leather. We're going to go to filters. You can just copy paste the same filter actually, but just to go through the same process, I'm showing it to you once more. The filter is applied. It still looks empty because we don't have any environment plugged in. We're going to go back to environment. Now here it's quite interesting. If I use the same that I used now for the leather, you see it's not bad, but it's a little bit dull because metal actually looks nicer, in my opinion, if you have a little bit more going on in the environment to be reflected. It looks more realistic. So we're just going to use a different kind of environment for this one, and I'm going to use the panorama, and you will see this is already a completely different story, and we actually get a nice metal look already. Now we can go back into the material and again adjust roughness. Do we want it more or less? In the reflection, we can adjust the metallics. This is really something you just play how it works best for you. I think this actually looks quite nice. And what you see here, this is really what we are going to see later in World. I will upload this and show you to compare, because we're still working in base color mode. This is the most important. If you switch to material here, it's going to show you something completely different, something really nice, but it's also going to be upsetting because it's not what you're going to get. So get used to work in base color mode and learn your filters, and you will get really nice results. I still don't like the buckle here, but the thing is, it's very flat, so there's not much to reflect. If this would be moving and the light would be moving, it wouldn't matter because that would be more realistic. But since we're baking it and it's kind of standing still, this looks just, if you look at it, just like a plain yellow something, but not nice. So we want more details to this. You can also here, just for the sake of it, turn your light where the sun is coming from to get a nicer, oh, maybe this is even better, something like here, so it's a little bit more central. I think this is how I like it. And now we're going to add some details to the buckle and to the snap here. So to add detail to the metal, I'm going to create a fill layer. This is the icon right here. And I'm going to add a black mask. A black mask means it's not applied at all. Everything that is going to be white will be visible, and whatever is black is non-visible. This way you can work in a non-destructive mode and change later on whatever you need to change again without ruining the texture. So I'm going to use, another thing. Here, when we click on the color, we see base color is gray. We can change it to any color we want, but we have different materials that are now affected. Means they're highlighted, so it will apply color, it will apply metal, roughness, normal, and height. What we want to do, we just want something in the normal and in the height map to actually play inside the metal. We don't want any extra color or anything, so we're going to disable these three and just leave normal and height enabled. What this will mean you will see in a second. Now we click back on our mask and we select a brush, and for the brush we scroll down. Actually, I'm just going to adjust the size. We scroll down to alignment. I'm going to go to UV. I'm going to go to texture because I will draw on here or on here. You can do both, you will see. And here in the alpha shapes, I'm going to select something that has, actually the first one was good, has some structure to it. Let's see the size, so I'll go a little bit bigger, a little bit more, something like this. This already looks good. Now, if I'm going to apply this, let's see, you just click and hold. Do we have, color is white, so this should be, it's probably still invisible. Yeah, you can see there's a little dot, so I applied something. We're gonna go back to our actual fill layer, and my height is set to 0, so I cannot see anything because I applied it on the height map, but I haven't set any height. So if I'm going to bump this up, you see there's height, and there's no color. This is just a reflection. I can go in both directions. This would be going down, this would be going up. I actually like it down better, so it's embossed. I'm gonna set it something like this. And now if I go back to my environment settings, and if I now start changing, you see it counts that in because it will reflect. It's like as if you would bake in a high poly in there. And you see if I go a little bit closer, it really looks like as if it's embossed into the metal. Now, I do not want it to be everywhere around this. I want it just in the center area. So we will adjust this in a second. But I also want the buckle here to be embossed. So I'm going to use the same brush. We're going to go back to our alpha mask. The brush is still there. My height is also there. This is my buckle. Maybe I do it a little bit bigger here, like this. And I will just go here, and you see it already applies in the 3D mode. I will tap here and tap here. And now I also have something around here which I don't need, and this is pretty neat in substance. This little icon here, if you click that, it will give us the option to go by the actual UVs and by the actual triangles or quads. If I select this part here, I will go by the actual UV island. If I set it to black and drag over a UV island, you'll see this whole island just turned black. So it keeps all the edges and will just delete what I just have drawn on this one, and it's swapped over here to clean it up basically. And I will drag over here and over these little pieces, and everywhere I drag over it will select the whole island. So this I want all clean, and just to make sure nothing was affected. So if I would do this here, it would select the whole thing. We don't want that. So we're going to go back and we will select this mode, and this will allow us to select just the quads because I don't want it in the back here, and I'm just going to drag by the quads that I want empty. This one probably not either. This we won't have affected. This I'm going to clean up. Okay, now we're going to turn back here in the 3D mode, and you see it's only exactly, it has a very, very clean edge, and it's affecting only this part. I mean, you can go around whatever, you know, you do it how you, where you want to have it. I think I like it this way. If we click on the actual fill layer, the UV shading goes away, and you see we have a nice detailed embossed metal buckle, and the rest is just plain gold and reflecting nicely. Now I wanted a little bit more detail in those small ones. This could have been just one UV and could have been the same on each. I'm torn about this because if it's one UV, the light will be exactly the same on each. So sometimes I split them and distribute them this way like I did here to have different lighting on each, because it's sometimes it just looks more natural, but that really depends on you. Obviously you can have, or you don't have that much detail in it if the UV chunks are so small, but it's still enough to add a little bit more. So we're going to go back to the fill layer and do the alpha mask, and we're going to select the brush tool again, and I'm going to use a different alpha. This is also something nice, how to create folds on item. You just use alpha folds and paint folds in, and it will reflect the light actually where it should be reflected. Let's see if we find something flowery. Let's use this one. And we want this very tiny small. We can zoom this in and basically just in here put some little flowers or around or wherever you want them. So, like so. And we have two more. These are not too many, so I can do this quickly this way, but if you have too many, you're not gonna want to do that on each single one. Then it's nicer to have a UV map that actually applies to all of them. So this looks good. And you can see here, I could also draw directly in the 3D view, you know. So if this is easier, if you have something particular and I want something small just around the edge here and carve in here, I can do that directly in the 3D mode. This is really up to you. Okay, this we deleted this, yeah. So this is nice and clean. We have a nice metal texture already on here. Pretty happy with the lightning. And for the holes, by the way, I made those rings cut through the whole leather in Maya, and I later on will apply an alpha inside Photoshop, actually, an alpha channel to cut those holes out, so you don't have to cut the actual geometry, but because the metals go through, it will look like a really made hole because the inside will be transparent. Now we will apply some embossment to the leather as well. Therefore we go back to the leather material, and on top of the plastic we will add a fill layer. Now, since we're going to apply a full texture here and not just a brush, I'm going to show you a different technique. And with the right click on the fill layer, we're going to add levels. In the fill layer itself, we will disable color, metal, roughness, and leave just normal and height. We go back to alphas. And I'm going to look for something lacy. I have a lace uploaded. This is a custom lace that I uploaded here. You can use whatever you have, and it has to be in gray colors. The more contrast it is, the better effects you will get. So we will drag and drop this into the height channel. Now we're gonna select the levels channel and here go into our height mode. And now we can use the sliders here, you see, to affect how much do we want it to be embossed or not. But I do not want to have it on the strap here. I actually want it only on the lower layer of the collar. So I will add a black mask. Now we don't see anything since everything was blacked out literally. We'll select the black mask. We use our UV island tool. Make sure you have set it to white and drag over the color only. Now you see the strap is still clean. If we click on the fill layer itself, the UV is gone and we can see it applied nicely only on the lower level. Now we can also go into our fill layer here, scroll up and scale our texture because maybe this is a little bit too big. Let's get one smaller. This could be actually very nice too. This may be even a little too small, so let's try 1.5. This is actually very nice. So I have the embossment down here. And I can also move the texture around. Just click and drag it where you want it to be, maybe to have a better placement. We'll leave it here. I think I'm quite happy with this. So this you can now export and use this as a base to apply or to adjust your colors in Photoshop. You can also adjust them in here and just add color layers. That's up to you and your personal preference where you prefer to do this. I would export this. Make sure you save your file. Save as, and I've saved it already here. Just going to save it again. And then we're going to go to File and Export Textures. You can make custom exports in here. I will show this in a different tutorial. For now, we just will use the default in here. You will select the folder you want it to go into. You select PNG. You select 1024 for the size for Second Life. And then make sure you have the materials enabled. If you want to export only one, you just check whichever you need and then hit export. And I usually save settings. And now you have all your textures in there, and we're going to take a look at it in World. So now we uploaded to Second Life. The color is on the model. And I uploaded the textures and the normal maps. And if we're gonna go to select face, and then we will apply the leather base. For the metal, we will apply the metal base. And just to show you, I'm on medium graphics. This is what we see. And if we change the sun. You see the lightning stays there. You can see the embossment and everything. We don't have any materials plugged in yet. This is really just the base of what we just created in Substance Painter. So there's a lot more to bring now that we can do to enhance this in Second Life. Let's see if we're gonna go to set this and put our advanced lightning and shadows on. Now you will see the difference when we will plug in the normal map that we created. Let me just something around here. If we zoom in closer, we will select the face we just had for the metal, for example. Go to bumpiness and select the normal, and for the leather select the normal there that we created and exported from Substance. And you see you have even more details now, and you actually see the embossed part of something that was very plain in the mesh. And I don't have any specular map applied yet to have the material and the metal specifically to have that shiny. So if I apply just a plain white, which I would not recommend, but I do it only for now to show because I haven't prepared a good spec map yet, blank. And we bump this to 100 only for the metals. Don't do white maps for anything but really if it's like super high shine. Otherwise it's always better to use specifically made specular maps that should actually have some of the details and should have a grayscale. And actually I prefer to use darker maps and bump the glossiness up way higher. You get much nicer results. But to show you the effect, what it does, this will do for now. So when I move the sun here, you can see that I have actually reflections on the metal, not on the leather because I didn't plug in any shine in there. But the leather shows me very nice height information because of the normal map. So I have leather texture, I can see the grain very clearly, I can see the embossment, and even if I zoom out a little bit you can still see a lot of details and the shine on the materials and on the metals. Now you can adjust your colors and yeah, basically finish off your own things with and color shadings with it. I hope this helped a little. If you have any questions, have them posted under the tutorial and let me know. Thank you very much for watching.